was argued by the management of the Mutt that this is their religious right and it should be protected because there was a law which was trying to intervene, trying to administer the Mutt. So the question of ERP came up because it was argued by the Attorney General of the state, and he, using the formulation of Ambedkar, he said that only those rights of religion which are essential to the religion should be protected, and anything else which is not essential to a religion is secular in nature. Like, and now using that, Shirun Mutt, Supreme Court, 7 judges, the court held that anything that is essential, only that will be protected. So religion is can have a lot of practices, but anything that is essential will be protected in 25 or 26. So Dhawan and Nariman, they are arguing that courts have become theologians, courts have become Maulvis and Dharmashastris, and court is going to discuss and decide that what is essential for your religion or not. When the matter came to the state argues in the counter affidavit, the state says that charity may be encouraged by the Islamic tenets, but that does not qualify it as an ERP. So it's okay that you have charity, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be essential for your religion. In fact, in one of the argument is, and it's a valid argument, that the question of ERP will only come up when the state will be able to prove that the law that was made by the state was in the furtherance of public order, health and morality or other parts of the Part 3 of the Constitution of India. And since the law or amendment law is prima facie arbitrary, and prima facie it is, there's one more word that is used, it is manifestly arbitrary and discriminatory, so which is Article 14 and 15, there is no need of. Court highlights that there is a review pending, and in the Sabrimala case, the 2018 case, where the issue of religious practice ERP came up. After that, that matter went into review, and the matter is pending before a 9-judge bench of the Supreme Court of India. And the Supreme Court of India is finally going to adjudicate on the ERP test. So the board is highlighting that, and the board is saying that ERP does not accommodate the believer's own margin of appreciation. This is a similar line to egoism. Practiced in Supreme Court of India for around 4 years before I started doing my master's in law in the University of London. So I'm coming from there, and yeah, I'm happy that the intense side of the legal debate has already been discussed by 2 of my seniors in the Supreme Court, Shamshad sir and Pasha sir. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just zoom in on one of the issues which is actually very close to my heart. It's related to the religious side of any issue that is normally, I mean actually most of the issues that are there from the Muslim community before the Supreme Court in the recent past are related to the Muslim identity. And one of the issues that we face as lawyers is how to couch it within law, like how to seek that protection from the court in the language of the Constitution of India. And when I was looking at the petitions, I thought that okay, because I knew that a lot of people are already focusing on Waqf. So I thought of drawing upon from the Waqf hearing and then highlight what I think is a larger problem and what I think is the link between a lot of issues that keep going before the Supreme Court. So this is related to the essential religious practice doctrine, very heavy and very confusing doctrine actually. So starting from the very start of it, Indian Constitution claims to be a secular constitution. Claims to be because it's a cynical. I'm a little cynical when it comes to that, and a lot of scholarly debate actually exists there as to whether Indian Constitution is actually a secular document or not. Because like one of the scholars argues that secularism in itself means, and this is a very Eurocentric, very original understanding of secularism, that there has to be no desire of the state to intervene within religion. So state should not intervene within the faith of any person who is governed by the constitution. But the Indian constitution is quite paradoxical there because it tries to do a balancing act. So it sometimes intervenes and sometimes protects. So in that context, there are two main provisions in the Constitution of India, Article 25 and 26. There are other provisions also which have the potential to protect religious rights, like in my opinion, there's Article 29.1, which talks about cultural rights. Culture is not been defined in the constitution, but when it comes to the Constituent Assembly debates, there is K.T. Shah who argues that culture also includes religion. So there is a potential of culture also to protect religion. But the two main provisions are Article 25 and 26. Now 25, and before we discuss 25 and 26, I thought it's important to discuss what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar said in the Constituent Assembly debate, because from there ERP actually it ties up to that. Ambedkar was quite apprehensive when it came to the practices of India, and he was arguing that every practice in India has a potential of becoming a religious practice. Everything can be religion in India. So he argues that there has to be a divide between the secular and the sacred. There has to be a line there. And what is going to be that line? And he's saying that anything that is essentially religious is to be protected, and anything that is not essentially religious is secular. Now, in that background, we can see Article 25 and 26, and we'll read this very quickly. Article 25 says that subject to public order, morality and health, and to the other provisions of this part being the Part 3 of the Constitution of India, which is the chapter of fundamental rights, all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice and propagate religion. Nothing in this article shall affect the operation of any existing law or prevent the state from making any law regulating or restricting any economic, financial, political or other secular activity which may be associated with religious practice. Now it goes on, but that's not relevant. So, and Article 26 is also saying, using a similar language, that subject to public order, morality and health, every religious denomination, any religious group, for example, Bohras. So you are also Muslim, but you are also a grouping within a religion, so you become a religious denomination. Or any section thereof shall have the right to establish and maintain institutions for religious and charitable purposes. And then it goes on. So basically we see that Article 25 and 26, religious freedom within the Constitution of India, but qualified. So there are restrictions, there are riders within the Constitution of India that there is religious freedom, but it cannot be violative of these things. So the state can make laws, say for public order, morality and health, or other provisions of the Constitution of India in Article of Part 3, in Article 25, which can be violative of religion. Now, from where ERP comes up. So, 1954, India was a freshly minted, independent, modern nation state. This question came up: Udupi, South India. There was this issue of a mud, and it was related to the administration of the mud. It was argued by the management of the mud that this is their religious right and it should be protected because there was a law which was trying to intervene, trying to administer the mud. So the question of ERP came up because it was argued by the Attorney General of the state, and he, using the formulation of Ambedkar, he said that only those rights of religion which are essential to the religion should be protected, and anything else which is not essential to a religion is secular in nature. Like, now using that, Shirur Mutt, Supreme Court, 7 judges, the court held that anything that is essential, only that will be protected. So religion can have a lot of practices, but anything that is essential will be protected in 25 or 26. Now the question is, who is going to define what is essential? In Shirur Mutt, Supreme Court is saying, and this is from where it gets interesting, Supreme Court is saying that it's going to be the religious denomination, it's going to be the practitioner who is going to decide what is essential and what is not essential. What changes is another judgment, Devaru, after some years. Similar facts, I'm not going to go into the facts because they're very confusing. Here also there was some conflict, and the Supreme Court said a similar question came up on ERP, on the question of essentiality, that who is going to define what is essential. Now the Supreme Court said that essential will be defined by the court, and here the Supreme Court is saying that not by the practitioner. So the court is going to decide what is essential for a religion, what is not essential for a religion. Another case, Dargah Committee, 1961. Same issue came up, similar issues, question of ERP. 5 judges bench, the Supreme Court is saying that not only should be essential to the religion, it also should be integral to the religion. Supreme Court is further saying that any religious practice which is not superstitious, quote unquote, should be protected. Only those practices which are essential, which are integral, and which are not superstitious, those should be protected. Now, Dhawan and Nariman, Dr. Dhawan is like an authority on ERP, and they highlight this in a paper and they write that this is a 3-step inquiry. So the first step is, if I am making a claim that this is a religious right, I will have to prove whether this is religious or secular. So that is the first level of the inquiry. Once I prove that this is religious and this is not secular, then I will have to prove whether it is essential or not essential. So that's the second level of inquiry. The third level of inquiry is when I prove that it is essential, whether it is superstitious or not, whether it is reformist in the sense of the code, whether the code thinks it's reformist, whether the code thinks it is modern. So those are the issues. So Dhawan and Nariman, they are arguing that courts have become theologians, courts have become Maulvis and Shastris, and court is going to discuss and decide that what is essential for your religion or not. Now, and there are a lot of judgments on ERP, and every judgment is quite something. Like in Anand Marga case, there was a case in 2004 where there was this religious group who used to do Tandava dance, and the Supreme Court again discussed ERP, and the Supreme Court said that not only it should be essential to a religion, it should be a permanent essential part of the religion. So anything that changes or anything that gets introduced later in a religion is not essential. In Sabrimala, which is one of the latest judgment on this, 2018 5 judges bench, Supreme Court is saying that there has to be unhindered continuity. So not only it's an essential practice, it has to be unhinderedly, if that's the word, continuous. So what I was trying to show is that there is a normative inconsistency when it comes to the ERP test. ERP test has changed, it has been tweaked. Why this is related to Waqf? That's a question that I asked myself. It's related to Waqf because, as discussed in the very morning, that at the heart of Waqf is the ideas of piety and religiosity. It's a religious endowment to begin with. Now, when the matter came to the state argues in the counter affidavit, the state says that charity may be encouraged by the Islamic tenets, but that does not qualify it as an ERP. So it's okay that you have charity, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be essential for your religion. In fact, in one of the judgment in Anand Marga only, the Supreme Court even says that it has to be not only essential, it has to be a core part of the religion. So it has to be something that if it is taken away, your entire religion falls apart. So in that background, the state is saying that if we take Waqf away, your religion is not going to fall apart, it's not that core of practice. In that background, the state is saying that what we are doing is we are regulating, we're merely regulating, we are putting some reforms out there. And that's the secular side of the religion. It's a secular side of a religious practice. So this will not be an essential part of the religion. Now what I found interesting is when I was going through the petitions which were filed in the Waqf matter, and Pasha Sir writes in his paper that 80 petitions were filed in the Supreme Court, and out of those 4 or 5 were given an audience. Out of those 4, I was looking at 4 petitions, and then I was looking at 3 petitions. I was looking at these 3 petitions because in my understanding they're very important. They are important because they are by one of the largest Muslim representative body, one petition. Second petition is by one of the very famous politician from Hyderabad, and apparently everybody is from Hyderabad here, so you will know. And so it's Owaisi. And the third petition is Jamiatul Hind, Arshad Naqvi Saab. So petitioners are not important. What is important is the argument, because as lawyers we understand the petitioners don't go through all these things. But they, of course, they endorse the arguments. They sign the wakalatnama, so it matters what is being filed with the name. And what is important is what I found really interesting is all the 3 petitions are pitching ERP differently. So all the 3 petitions, they are trying to, 2 petitions trying to sidestep ERP. Because of course, there is this fear, there is a suspicion that if we are going to invoke ERP, court is going to use it in any manner whatsoever. Which I call Schrodinger's cat, that once you invoke ERP, anything can happen because the ball is in the court of the court can do anything. Court can ask you to prove this, like in the hijab matter, court asks that prove it that it's a part of, essential part of your religion. and court came up with a copy of the Quran, and then of course there's a politics of translation, and then court discusses whether this is essential or not, and Karnataka High Court said that no, this is not essential to your religion. In one of the matter in 2015, there was a personnel in the Indian Air Force. He wanted to have a beard, and the matter went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court asked that, okay, prove that this is a part of your religion, it's a mandate in your religion, it's an essential practice. And perhaps the legal team could not do it, that's what the judgment says. And that was not protected, his right was not protected. Another matter where the Quraishi community went and said, okay, we want to slaughter cows. And the Supreme Court, because there was a legislation forbidding the slaughter of cows, and the Supreme Court said that that's not a mandate of the religion. So they can be that kind of, there are risks involved if you invoke Yapi. And of course lawyers know this, because they know this because the Supreme Court has done it. So in Arshad Mandi petition, the argument is, and it's a valid argument, that the question of ERP will only come up when the state will be able to prove that the law that was made by the state was in the furtherance of public order, health and morality, or other parts of the Part 3 of the Constitution of India. And since the law or amendment law is prima facie arbitrary, and prima facie it is, there's one more word that is used, it is manifestly arbitrary and discriminatory, so which is Article 14 and 15, there is no need of invoking ERP, so the state cannot force her to invoke ERP, we are not going to do it. Now in OSS petition, the petitioner is arguing that clearly this is not a matter of secularism. These are not, it's a matter of secularism, but this is beyond secular domain because these practices are not secular in nature, these practices are very much religious in nature, like Bakpal and all these practices. Or in fact what Mr. Zapasha was highlighting, how tribals are not being allowed to create Waqf. So the petitioner is invoking ERP. But in a very interesting manner, because the petition is choosing with judgment. So the petitioner is choosing Shirun 1, which is the first judgment, 1954, in which court said that it's the believer, it's the practitioner who is going to decide which practice is essential to me. So that, and the other judgment which I find very interesting is, I think everybody does, it's Bijoy Emanuel. Bijoy Emanuel was a judgment where there were 3 kids, 3 students, who did not sing the national anthem of India. And they did not do it because they were Jehovah's Witnesses, and they said, in our faith we don't sing national anthems. And Supreme Court said that it's okay. Supreme Court said that it's okay because they sincerely believe in it. Supreme Court even said that prima facie this practice can be bizarre. That's the word the court uses. And the court says that even when the practice is bizarre, if a believer conscientiously believes in a practice and sincerely believes in it and follows it, then we are going to protect it within under Article 25 and 26. So what OSS petition is doing, it's invoking ERP using 2 very specific judgments of the Supreme Court, Shri Rumar Emanuel, saying that the Muslim community sincerely practices Waqf, and since it sincerely believes in it, sincerely follows it, then the court must protect it under Article 25 and 26. The most interesting that I found was from the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. Court categorically rejects ERP as a correct constitutional test. Court says that there is a need for the court to devise an alternative judicially tangible model of adjudication of freedom of religion claims. Court highlights that there is a review pending, and in the Sabrimala case, the 2018 case, where the issue of religious practice ERP came up. After that, that matter went into review, and the matter is pending before an anti-judicial bench of the Supreme Court of India. And the Supreme Court of India is finally going to adjudicate on the ERP test. So the board is highlighting that, and the board is saying that ERP does not accommodate the believer's own margin of appreciation. This is a similar line to Bijoy Emanuel, that if you sincerely follows, then that's enough. Now the board is not the only body who is saying that. In fact, Ronald Joyce writes in the book that the most striking aspect of the essential practices doctrine is the attempt by the court to fashion religion in the way a modern state would like it to be, rather than accept religion as represented by the practitioner. So the board's pleadings placed greater reliance on Article 14, 19, and 21 and tried to sidestep 25 principles. Now this I see as a testament to the fact that the ERP test has been so unpredictable and there is so much of precarity attached if you invoke that doctrine, that there was a strategic stand-up was taken, because obviously litigation is a matter of strategy mostly. And the board went into the equality code 14, 19 and 21, like Ashwin Badni's petition went into 14 and 15, rather than 100% going in 25, 26, because there are of course risks attached, because once you invoke 25, 26, there can be ERP, and if there can be ERP, there can be other issues. Now, what's my takeaway? There are two takeaways. One is quite abstract for me, it's very academic in nature. I don't think so anybody is going to like it. The second one is, it's more of a question, it's more of a provocation, it's not an argument. So the first one is that, it's related to what Dr. Patel was arguing about the analogical reasoning, that it says something about the common law tradition, that the courts are not following their own precedents. So what the Supreme Court is saying, in Shuru 7 judges, Supreme Court itself is tweaking its own decision in Devaru, and the Supreme Court is going in a different direction in Dargah Committee, and the Supreme Court is doing then something else. So it keeps on shifting, which instills, of course, a lot of suspicion among communities, because they're seeing what is happening. And then something like ERP comes up, something like ERP happens, and something like these different arguments take place, which shows that ERP doesn't have a shared constitutional language. So for everybody else, they are seeing ERP as a different test. It's a different test for everyone, which also shows that there is, and I'm to the second point, that there is a problem when it comes to the protection of religion, as to how to invoke that before the courts. Because clearly, Article 25 and 26, two main provisions of the Constitution of India for the protection of religion, are not doing what is required for them to do, or perhaps they're doing exactly what is required for them to do, I don't know. But there is this problem, because even the Muslim petitioners, they are trying to devise as to how to seek protection. And paradoxically, a religious practice will have to go under equality code, will have to go under a different code in order to seek its protection, because religious protection provisions are perhaps not enough. So, and this is not only related to work, this is related to other matters also, because these are the discussions that take place in courts when such matters, they keep coming. So, like in fact, in hijab matter or any other matter for that matter, if you see any of that matter, you will see that different laws are taking different lines. And one of the reasons for it, wherever it was there, was the reason that there is so much of suspicion involved. So yes, so that is from my side. Thank you.